We shall not cease from exploration. And the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. Through the unknown remembered gate, when the last of earth left to discover is that which was the beginning.
Alex, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Hey, no problem, Caleb. Happy to be here today.
So, I mean, we were already talking a lot before this episode, and that'll all be stuff that'll be lost for the listeners. But I've wanted to have you on the show ever since, like, we met, what was it, like 2 months ago now?
About 2-3 months, yeah.
Yeah. Whenever you were setting up Bardstock. And so kind of just for people listening, do you want to talk a little bit about what you were doing with Bardstock and what inspired you to do that?
Well, absolutely, man. I mean, so first off, I'm not the only person who was behind Bardstock, but a lot of people have noted I put a lot of work and effort into it. The whole idea was incepted April 26th after the first Flood City Fables. Myself, Damian Rucci, Amanda Oakes, and Matthew Stump from Poeming Through the Dark, we all said we wanted to just have a day festival for poetry, out here in Johnstown. We were thinking about getting the park and contacting the city at the time and just get something together right here in the center of town where we could have the poets just come out, do their thing, speak their piece, and just have a good day for literature. And that kind of changed as it evolved. I left with Damien on May 3rd. We went on a tour for 63 days around the country, and then I got dropped in a group chat with Amanda Oakes and Matt Stumpf and some other folks about just planning for Bardstock, and we had a conversation when I was in Anaheim, California. The city of Johnstown said, they're likely not going to give you the park. Mm-hmm. We kind of knew that, and like they're not going to give us the park. They have construction on September 3rd, and we said, well, we're doing an event August 23rd, right? That's the date we decided. So we're like, hold on. I mean, let's take back for a second. It's like they don't want us to do it. They're closing the park out. Okay, let's re-navigate that idea then a little bit. We might not get the park. Let's see if we could get a proposal together, get some of the businesses on board, and just, say, hey, it's not just us who want to do this. Your community wants this done, and we got a hold of Mike Messina, Chameleon. We got a hold of the folks at Craftworks that I've been working with for Flood City Fables. Got a hold of Gallery on Gazebo. Darcy Trunzo was doing a gallery exhibit there for the month. Convey, and we got a hold of the folks at Roots. We got a hold of the Cambria County Library, and suddenly this wasn't just this thing we thought that we couldn't do because the city was telling us we couldn't do it. It was, we have a lot of community members who we knew wanted to see it happen. Yeah. And that was the driving force, as you were asking. It's the drive to Bardstock is, if your community wants to come together and do something, they can do it if they organize effectively. And that kind of drove me to spend the month leading up to it, because I got back July 8th to Johnstown, and then the next few weeks we're figuring out if it was going to be feasible. And then I finally started writing up proposals, talking to the city, talking to the people I was working with Poeming Through the Dark, and they were like, we won't give you the park. And we're like, well, we get that. Okay, can you give us a negotiation then? Because there's a lot of people who would like to see this happen. And they said, we could close the streets for you. Mm-hmm. And then, that being said, though, if you want to see something succeed, if your community wants to, the driving force, the mission statement of it at the end of the day is, the arts can succeed, there is a space for them, and you gotta sometimes put that energy out there, put it in the right places, organize effectively within yourself, within the people around you, and you can make it happen. And that's kind of it. That was the biggest reason, is bring some culture here to Johnstown, bring some artists I know, especially from me traveling around for 2 months, from the coast, from out by Ohio, from Maryland, and we wanted to see that happen. We wanted to highlight the local talent here in Johnstown. Mm-hmm. And I'm still meeting people. I'm still learning more about this city here. I'm still learning about the artists here, and I want to continue to do that so I could highlight more artists here in Johnstown. But the goal at the end of the day was that mission statement, and being able to come together being able to have a day for the community where everybody can just sit down, listen to everyone, whether it's their writing, whether it's their poetry, whether it's music, whether it's a DJ coming in and playing his sets because he needs the time to do that too. And, you know, it's all that artistic expression bundled into one thing. But more importantly, you know, it's getting all the artists together and getting the public, not just the art community, because we're all artists, but getting the public together and having the common people who don't make art, or they don't make art to that capacity, but getting back to the public, and they get to see in a nice way, hey, check this out. You know, there's bands playing, there's poets here from around, you know, get a different perspective, listen to what someone else has to say, see a different culture, and that's kind of the idea of the Maj Podge of what Bardstock became, and, you know, to what a bard is.
Yeah. Well, that's what I loved about the name. I mean, obviously, besides the allusion to Woodstock and that just perfectly fitting the vibe that you were creating there, I think that the idea of the bard, especially in our modern society, and like what it means to us now as opposed to what it meant back, like, you know, when Shakespeare was the bard, you know, and stuff like that, is I always kind of think of that difference, that differentiation that you were making between people who are making art to be shown to other people in sort of a performative way compared to like maybe the art that people are just making at home for fun, like, you know, drawing, writing, that kind of thing, where the importance of artists now in this society is kind of like the players in Hamlet, where they come in, they roll in from like some far country, and they organize this event that makes people, it spotlights something of the way that people are feeling, and it's a perfect way for people to have new ideas, but also kind of have ideas reaffirmed by these people who are creating that. So with Bardstock, was that the first event at that scale that you organized or helped organize, or have you done things like that in the past?
That was the first festival I organized, and the only thing that really compares to an attendance like that is August 1st, 2024, we did a filming for PBS at the Jersey Shore Arts Center for the New Jersey Poetry Renaissance. We had between 150 to 200 people show up. So we were in a theater, luckily. It was staged very well already, of course, but there was a lot of choreography that had to be done there with sound, lighting, checks, getting features in, making sure the cameramen were set up. I didn't so much work on the cameras. That was PBS and their documentarian, Steve Rogers himself, but I was assistant to the feature of that event, which is Damian Rucci for his founding of the New Jersey Poetry Renaissance, and then the variety of features along with him who were picked between him and PBS to create that event. And then there was an open mic afterwards, so there was a lot of interest of the poetry community from not just New Jersey, but from Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania, who were connected to, some people from New York, the New Hampshire's, New England's poetry renaissance scene, some folks from Massachusetts. We had people come in, and that same week was also this really fun week we came to call Poemageddon Week out in New Jersey with the Renaissance, where we just bring in artists from all around the country to New Jersey. We would do like a week's worth of booked, curated, featured shows for poetry, and then have open mics afterwards. So that was the biggest event that I was part of, and then that week of that. But this was the first festival for sure, and definitely the biggest thing that I've done, kind of holding some like reins on a little bit better. But yeah, man, I mean, it's cool. You know, you see some cool stuff when you get more people come out. You know, there's a lot more creative juice flowing around, and it gets a little bit more fun. Sometimes it gets a little bit more wacky, but it gets a little bit more fun. You know.
Yeah. So what attracted you at first to the poetry scene where you came from in the music scene?
Well, I was playing music all throughout high school, and I didn't really have anywhere that I could do anything with it. Mm-hmm. We couldn't find anybody to play with, or people would say, it's like, yeah, man, we'll play, we'll jam, and then nobody really would do anything, but like we'd still jam and we'd still play when we can, you know. And then the poetry thing, it's like nobody really ever knows that there's an outlet for it. Mm-hmm. And like I was writing too all through high school, and I didn't have anywhere to go read it. No one knew about that. Those things weren't publicized, you know. No one told me about that in high school. Nobody, you know, even when I was in college, I didn't really hear much about people, you know, having I guess like poetry clubs or anything like that. Or I didn't know anything about the open mic scene or anything. But that kind of started though when I was 19. My buddy Joe, his band Pep Rally got asked to play for this guy's chapbook release in Keyport, and it was at this like coffee shop, and I didn't even know that at the time. I was just like, heck yeah, dude, you guys are gonna go play? Let's like, yeah, I'll be there. You know, why not? Yeah. And then I get there, and I'm just outside smoking with a bunch of people, you know, hanging out, doing what 19, 20, 21-year-olds do outside of coffee shops, and we're just there. You know, there's a whole room packed full of people. Joe's mom read poetry. I found out there were mics at this coffee shop. It was called Poetry in the Port. And that was a really interesting night that I came to realize later on that was a much more interesting night because this big fat guy just walks out in a leopard print dress and everybody's clapping for him and then they all start cheering. And that guy ended up being Damien Rucci, who is the founder of the New Jersey Poetry Renaissance. And back then he just hosted one event. It was called Poetry in the Port, and I never really went to it at that point in time. But that's because I was working and doing all sorts of silly things. But then I fast forward to 2022. I'm like 25 years old, and I start hearing about these events through a friend, and I come out. They're right around my hometown area in central New Jersey, and I end up going to Poetry in the Port, lo and behold. Again, 7 years later, and same guy still running it. And I saw what he was doing. I saw he was trying to feature artists. He was trying to feature poets. He was trying to get people reading and writing and caring about literacy, caring about, you know, actual art. And I just kept going out. I was kind of just screwing around, reading some poems and playing some music. And then I just kept going back, and then I was like, oh, wow, I really like this. And then next thing I know, he couldn't host at the coffee shop anymore. He had a bunch of events around central New Jersey at the time. At that point, the NJ Poetry Renaissance was founded. And, you know, he just was doing like 9 shows. And I was like, man, I really like Poetry in the Port here at the coffee shop. You guys mind if I host it? And he was like, sure, why not? Yeah. Heck yeah, dude, that'd be awesome, you know. And like I found out he couldn't keep making it up the coast, and the coffee shop owner's schedule was getting a little wonky, and it just wasn't working out for a month or two. And I was like, yeah, dude, I'll do it. And then I did that for 2 years. Nice. I hosted an event, open mic, learned how to book artists, learned how to, you know, do all that fun stuff, and I'm really grateful for it because I had an outlet, but that's not the important part when you talk about a scene for art. You talk about that. It's about having an outlet for other people. So, yeah. But at the end of the day, it's like me just being around artists at the end of the day and talking to people and knowing what was going on. That's what got me into having the outlet for it and being around it more.
So, what is maybe the difference in the feelings between being an artist who's part of an event like that compared to being the person curating that event? Like, does it feel like you have to be 2 separate people there?
You do, actually. You have to be 2 separate people, and you need to be 2 separate people who could also be the same person at the same time. Mm-hmm. And that's the difficult part of it, because when you're the artist, you know, you're supposed to be like raw and emotional and feeling and just doing that thing and letting it flow through you. And then when you're the host and the organizer, you don't get to be that. You have to be logical and poignant and on time, and all those things artists usually aren't. And, you know, there's a whole separate, I guess, part of the brain, I could say, that, you know, you use, but you're also hosting the thing, mm-hmm. and then you're an artist, right? So you're going to go up there and you get all your ducks in a row. You make sure everything's organized. You know, you make sure you have a list out. You make sure all your features are coming in if you have booked performers, and make sure you promoted the show beforehand, hopefully. And once you're there, you're getting ready to kick it off. You know, whether you want to also perform to the audience some of your art, right? Or you gotta start it. You gotta kind of prime an engine there. So you can't just set something cold out and just be like, and these guys are going to be playing, or you can do that, but in our realm of what we've done and how we've booked and curated events and shows, we always make a point to set the room.
Yeah.
You know, because you're the host, that's your room, and the difference though in between that is, you know, you are the artist, you are the performer, you are a featured artist at times, you are somebody just coming to the open mic and sharing your stuff, or you're the guy running it for the 4 hours, and you're making sure everything's good and it's good by all the other artists who want to be there and have their good time, and just, you know, you need to make sure that they're not only that they have the time and space on the mic, but also, you know, be there, listen to them, make sure they're heard, you know, keep energy in the audience. Sometimes things flow in and out. The energy of a room ebbs in and out while you're at an event. And if you're hosting it, you're the host. It's your responsibility to make sure it's your event. Everyone's having a good time, best you can, you know. So you come into these different responsibilities of being somebody who then hosts and organizes versus just being the artist. Like, hey man, I'm just here to have a good time. This is my art. This is about me. Versus, oh, I'm hosting an event. No, this isn't about me. It's about all these people who are coming here.
Yeah.
It's about the features who I'm putting up on the spotlight, or the other organizers are putting up in the spotlight. It's like, hey, we really appreciate this person's poetry. We're putting them up. They're getting a 10-minute set tonight, you know, and you're going to enjoy what they have to hear, just like we have. Yeah. Or, you know, we have this musician coming out, you know, he's playing for 15 minutes, and we hope you enjoy his music, and that's about them. Whereas when you're going up as the artist for that 5 minutes on the open mic, or 10 to 15 minutes that you're featured to do a thing at that event, that's about you. So that's the difference. It's that, and the ability of you being able to not choose between, but balance between those two things if you choose to do both.
Yeah.
And that's difficult at times, but manageable.
So whenever you first took over the reins of kind of manning the event planning for the coffee shop from Damien, and you said that you kind of had to, you know, learn all those things and become that person who could curate and not just be a person who was participating in it. How much of that do you, in your own feeling, was intuition versus stuff that you had to like really learn and like allow to grow inside of you, like the skills that it took to be that event curator?
Yeah, that's an interesting question actually, because it's kind of 50-50 in some ways, because I had to learn a bunch of things I didn't want to know anything about prior, or I didn't care to, because again, you know, it's like I was enjoying being myself and doing my thing, but once you step up to the home plate, you know, it's different. So, I sometimes I'm a chronic people pleaser, and of course, I mean, that's pretty good for a host at times, because you want to make sure the people there are having a good time and things are proper and right for them. And then, you know, I've worked in and out of like the banquet industry, and you know, I know a little bit about like weddings and stuff like that. So like doing a setup for an event, prep work, even in construction and things like that. So like my prior skill sets going into it, it's like, yeah, you know, like something has to be a certain way, right? But then me learning about, you know, getting in contact with people, you know, paying more attention, listening better to the people around me in the rooms, and what people are performing, what people are reading, not just reading, but reading their work, looking further into it, not just the stage performance, the written as well, listening to the musicians better. You know, we had comedians enter our scene too. That was a really big thing, and you know, it's like me getting more accustomed to comedy and things like that, and just listening to the comedians, you know, listening to jokes, listening to how things are funny, how they hit crowds, and you know, just seeing how or why you'd want certain artists to be booked on a bill, and curating that as well, and also seeing who's, you know, putting the effort into that craft too, and you know, who's putting that hard work in. And it's like, oh man, this guy's comedy sets are getting better. It's like, damn, that poem really hit. You know, I like that, and the audience liked that. And it's like, oh, dude, man, he really shreds on guitar. He's a great singer-songwriter. It's like, and you see these people and the art that they're creating, and you having to pay attention to that and say, wow, I really like these 4 or 5 people for the next event, because I I'm here, I see what they're up to, I like it, I'm watching it, and there's that part of it. And then right off the bat there, guess what you need to learn how to do? Contact people better, communicate with people better, because you now need to reach out to these people, see when their schedules work for that, ask them, hey, would you be available this Saturday night between these hours to perform? I want you to feature. Would you be able to do that? This is the address, this is the event, blah, blah, blah. And, you get yeses, you get nos, and then it's like, I couldn't curate the event that I wanted to in this time frame. Maybe I have to get a hold of some other people, and that's all right too, But realizing that kind of stuff, and then going into the whole social media, PR, and aesthetics, which is a whole separate thing. Is making and building flyers. Like my flyers, they sucked. They still kind of suck, but they when I first started making flyers for events, they sucked, and we were pretty fortunate because there was a group of us out in New Jersey. We'd all kind of like work with each other, and stuff like that. Like sometimes I'd book events, and Damien would make me a flyer because he's like, yeah, Doug, you're working 40 hours a week, 60 hours a week, but you're hosting the show, you're still contacting everybody. He's like, I'll make a flyer, it's all right, and some people have better skill sets, and sometimes it's good when you organize with a group of people to assist with things like that. Sometimes that's not always the case. But yeah, there's that, hitting your PR at the right times, putting stuff up on social media, Facebook, Instagram. I mean, out here in PA, I'm flyering the city. We didn't do that out in New Jersey. Everything was on social media. That's a completely different thing. I was like, yeah, we're gonna have to flyer the city out here. That way people really see it. It's in their face. We want people to show up. And I was learning how to, get better with posting things on social media, though, with that PR, get better with graphic and aesthetic. I learned graphic work. I didn't know anything about that. I didn't know how to use Canva before. I didn't know how to use any of these like imaging softwares for things like that. And just getting the eye for the aesthetic for it. And then after that, it's like you got all that stuff, cool. Then you got to host a show.
Yeah.
Then you have a style. Like, how are you hosting your events? What are you doing? How do you want to curate your event now? What do I want to do? How do I want to start it up? And it could be funny, if you want it to be. It depends on the person you are, though. And, like, it could be, it could just be deadpan. Some events you go to, guys are like, it's like, yeah, well, tonight we're gonna have a reading, and we have these people who are out from, and we were never like that. We want people to be interested. We want, we're out here. We're all screaming into the void. With what we have to say, so we like to come in and try to punch the room for people. That way we want high energy in the venue. We want you guys to be pumped up to be there, and perform your art, read your art, play music, tell your jokes, whatever it's going to be. And that goes down to now me learning how to host. So I had to learn how I wanted to host events, which was the other thing. So it's, as I said, it's a 50-50 thing, and like I kind of grew into all of that in my hosting style, and how I am with people, and at the end of the day, you're hosting an event, though. It's not for you. It's for the public. It's for the community. It's for the artists, and that's what needs to be reminded to people who want to organize events. And what do you want for the public, and what do you want for them? What's the goal with that? In any event you're going to curate, it doesn't matter if it's something like this, for poetry specifically, or for musicians specifically, or what have you. It's just, you have to realize how you want to host that event, and that all comes into what I had to learn over the course of, I don't know, a year, 2 years, now going on 3, and I'm still learning. So that's part of it. You learn new things every day.
Yeah, and I think something that I've found really interesting since meeting you is you coming to Johnstown and bringing these ideas in from the New Jersey area. That kind of all happened by an interesting kind of chance. I mean, because Joey bought the house just because he needed somewhere to live, and this is now where you're living because of that. And so I kind of like that dynamic, especially like on things that we do together, because like I've been native here my entire life. Like, I was born here, raised here, never lived anywhere else. And so, because of that, I look at things in the town a certain way because, I've seen it over the past 20 years or so, develop. And So you guys coming in here and having the ideas of what New Jersey was like. How did Johnstown kind of how did the maybe the zeitgeist of the city mesh with you when you came in here?
We really didn't see anything happening. That was kind of the problem.
Yeah.
So on the coast and around our areas, and like you can go do something every night, and the bars are open till 2. You get food all night, and like I know this isn't that place, but you'd go places, they'd be doing something at every bar, or the coffee shops would stay open late, or you just find something to do.
Yeah.
After 5 p.m. And that's kind of the thing that we were talking about out here. It's like, yeah, we can go to the bar or we can go to church, and that's what everybody kept telling us. And we're like, we don't really subscribe to that belief that we can just go to the bar or we can go to church. We kind of are of this mindset of if there's not an outlet, we'll make one. Mm-hmm. And I found out being here, especially, I mean, there's tons of artists here. Mm-hmm. It's not like there aren't a ton of artists. I've met a ton of musicians. I've met a bunch of writers. You're one of them. Mm-hmm. You're as well a musician, and on top of that, I mean, there's a writer's circle here. There's people who perform art, fine art, paint. There's people who are interested in theater, and it's like finding the outlet. Though it's like we couldn't find one when we got here, and naturally our question is, where is it? And it's like, oh, well, if it ain't anywhere, it's like that means that we got to make it somewhere. Yeah. And that's kind of the thing. And I would like to get more people under that philosophy. That's if you don't see it, make it happen. I mean, that's mind the gap. If you see a gap somewhere around you, you might be the only one who could fill that gap, because you're the only one who might see that there is a gap there. And there clearly was one here in Johnstown. I mean, Poeming Through the Dark is here every other month. They're in Classic Elements. They'll be there November 22nd coming up. Mm-hmm. And they're going to be here again in January. The writer's circle meets once or twice a month, so you can meet with other writers and you could discuss writing and do prompts and stuff like that. But like we didn't see anything otherwise performance based out here that where you can get up at an open mic, like Poeming Through the Dark, mm-hmm. to read some prose, read a couple poems, do an essay if you wanted to, maybe even play some music for a little bit. And I know, Amanda and Matt don't advertise that, but you're welcome to do that there. Mm-hmm. Then otherwise, I haven't found any other open mics out here. Like, there's no music open mics other than at Dively's every Wednesday night. And like, that's great. I'm happy that's been going on for 25 years. Shout out to Dave for that. That's tonight too. But, that's the only thing I've found. I've seen maybe one at Fetz's on a Thursday night. And the point is, though, it's like, you don't have something concurrently happening weekly or bi-weekly, or other than a jam night at the bar, and like that's cool, but you need more than one thing. You need more than one thing. You need more than two things,
and it needs to be frequent.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing. And I've been taking a break from Flood City Fables since the beginning of September, because the coffee shop that I was running it out of, attached to Kraftwerk Studios, was getting remodeled. Some new tenants are in there. They're starting a new coffee shop. Really happy to see that happen. Mug and Moon's going to be open soon, hopefully. But
okay, I didn't know that was becoming a new coffee shop.
Yeah, that's going to be a new coffee shop. It was the Right Cup beforehand, and then the baristas who were there decided to pool together and be like, yeah, we want to run our own coffee shop. And I'm like, I'm all about that, man. Again, if you don't see it happen, and you do it yourself, right?
Well, that's even better. I didn't know that it was the same baristas who were just reforming it. That's really cool.
Yeah, and that's awesome. So I'm really looking forward to that. But I've been kind of taking this time to step back from the 3 to 4 months of me just traveling and doing art and doing the festival, and go back to work, put some money together, and then get myself to a point where I could say, I want there to be a consistent event here, other than me doing a mic here once, maybe twice a month. Maybe I could do something with other people here, or even if it's still on my own. Yeah. It's getting this basis of a consistent event out here where people know it's like, man, we can go to Johnstown. There's an open mic there every Friday night for poetry. Yeah. Not just poetry, music, and comedy. If you guys want to do that, it's mixed. I'm all about mixed art form from where I'm from. I don't want to sit there and segregate art. Come on up, do your thing. Yeah. And then it's about the basis of free speech, man. Come up, speak your piece. Exercise that, and that's why I hold the mic. But I've kind of been reassessing and reevaluating. It's like maybe I want to get a hold of a few venues in town and say, hey, would this venue want this every other week on this day, on Thursday, let's say, or I'm going to keep doing this one here at Craftworks and now at Mug and Moon it opens once a month, and then do something with the Cambria County Library that's all ages, once a month, and that way there actively is something happening every week.
Yeah.
Where people could go to, and it doesn't matter what your age is. It doesn't matter if you drink or don't drink. It doesn't matter what the case may be. It's just every week. It's like, hey, you couldn't make it to this one. Cool. We're gonna do it next Friday.
Yeah.
At this place instead. And then if you don't drink, you're in NA or AA. You don't have to go to this bar where I'm hosting it. We're gonna be in a coffee shop this night. Oh, you couldn't go to the one at the bar. You have kids. Great. We're at the library. You could come to the library with your kids at this time on this date. We're doing an all ages open mic. Your kids can come up and read poems. They could sing a song if they want to. Heck, they could show some drawings and talk about their art. And that's the idea that I have moving forward for what I want to do out here with that. And then hoping that there's more events and there's more people who would like to see more events and who'd be willing to do more events. And I'm not the only one. There's other people in the area who are working effectively to organize. Darcy Trunzo's over at the Steeples Project right now, trying to curate and put on events over there at the Columba Theater. And, we've been talking about that, wanting to get bands in, trying to get visual artists in, trying to get touring acts to stop here if possible.
Film festivals.
Film festivals. I know you've been talking about doing the film festival over there too. And it's just getting more, more things happening in these empty spaces that are around us. Yeah. And that's the thing, right? So we're around a group of creative people. There's creative people here. What do you do about it?
Yeah. Well, and I really like that idea, and it actually kind of perfectly goes into sort of this theme that I've been thinking about over the past week and trying to figure out, is there a story that I can put, behind this theme? Because I've kind of had this phrase in my head, kind of with the world right now and seeing where everything is politically and economically and socially. And I had this phrase that kind of popped in, and it's Jericho on a Saturday. And it was just this random phrase that I started to think about. And I was like, what does that mean to the way that I'm feeling like right now? Why did this idea come up? And I think what it came from is that exact feeling where it's, what is the story of Jericho? It's this kind of ragtag group of people who come in from the wilderness to this fortified city of people who don't want their ideas, who don't want their culture, who don't want all of this. And what they do is they don't leave. They don't find somewhere else to make it. They say, this is where we want to stay. Mm-hmm. And so they camp around the city and they stay there until the walls fall down, and then they go in and they bring in the culture that they want. Yeah. And where the on a Saturday comes in is the exact I think the exact impetus of how that can be done in the culture we're currently living in. Because one thing that I want to see and want to be a part of changing in Johnstown is, there's great people like Mike at Chameleon and Dave at the Steeples Project, where it's like kind of the older generation of people who are holding on to this idea or holding on to this kind of spirit of art and wanting this stuff in our town. And they have the infrastructure to allow us to do it. But then the problem is a lot of the people who are actually doing it, it's like even funny things like at the library, most of the events that happen at the library are during the workday.
Of course they are, yeah, it's a library.
Because and most of the events anywhere are kind of, that I see, are during the workday or during times, and because it's so infrequent, it's like, like you said, if you miss one, you kind of
When's it happen again?
Yeah, you have to wait another month, you have to wait another 2 months.
You might not make it next month, you're going to forget about it.
Exactly.
You just worked a whole 30 days, something else came up, you got a rent payment due, you don't have the money to go out.
Yeah.
You can't drive into town. You can't go to the bar that you're going to go and spend $20 on drinks and food.
Yeah.
When you're at the event, and it's like that. So exactly that though. Yeah, I mean that's why I'm all about free events too. Yeah. On top of it, like I don't want a bar to entry for you to come in. Just come in.
Yeah. And I think with this younger generation, you, me, everyone who we're around, who really want to see this change enact and really want to be part of the change happening. It's like we have to do that in the structure of the way that society exists, and so it has to happen in like in the late hours of the night. It has to happen on the weekends. It has to happen on all these times, and that's that idea of like the revolution can happen on the weekend kind of thing. And I was thinking about that a lot because the No Kings protest that happened last week, I realized something, which is that those always happen on the weekend because it's the people who have the most problem with the way that the world is currently kind of grinding to a halt are the people who are continuing. They have to continue to work. They have to continue to bring in money, like what you're doing with emptying out freezers, doing all this stuff. Like we have to do the unpopular work, the unwanted work to be able to live the lives that we want to live in the times when we're able to live it.
Because unfortunately we can't eat art and we don't live in a culture that allows that.
Yeah.
Because they don't want that though, because art brings change.
And new ideas.
And new ideas and new structures, and everybody says that they're an advocate for the art, but like, I don't see the wealthy people writing checks to the people who need it, who are making it.
Yeah.
And it's always us artists though, us working class artists, and that was a big point of the NJ Renaissance and the poetry Renaissance as a whole around the country. It was, we're a working class arts movement. Mm-hmm. We don't want your hoity-toity shit. We're not academics. Mm-hmm. We don't want your fine art snobbery. We're here. We're weird as hell. Deal with it, man. I mean, this is art.
Yeah.
We're working artists, working class voices, and those don't often get recorded in history.
Yeah.
They don't often, get archived. And I was just with Jason Baldinger out in Pittsburgh last night. That's exactly what we were talking about. It's like all of us having books, making books, doing our thing, and putting our voice in print in some way. It's like, you know what? Our writing is on some people's libraries that we know throughout the country, just tucked away somewhere, and maybe someone will go over to their house and they'll pick that up and they'll read that and they'll say, "Wow, I relate to this guy. It seems like he was working in shit just like me."
Yeah.
And that's the important part though about archiving the working class voice. And and instead of like, I don't want to hear what Kim Kardashian has to say. I don't care about Kanye.
Yeah.
And like, what defunct way of society do we need to be in where that's the guy who's going to get remembered, or that's the girl who's going to get remembered when they make pop music, man. They're celebrity families. They're and why do we want that? Why would we still want that? Why do I want to keep listening to Taylor Swift? And that's kind of the thing. Whereas we're here right now, and we are all making stuff, and it's not all refined and produced and all these fun things that these people with a bunch of money get to do with them. But
Yeah.
Guess what? We're still here. We're still creating. We're still making stuff, and it's all very valid, and it needs to be there no matter what. And that's kind of the point of the movement. It's that we're gonna make it no matter what. Mm-hmm. We always make it, but we're gonna make it. We're gonna make our stuff, our art, no matter what the cost, no matter what happens around us. And if we have to go work and do it, we'll do it.
Yeah, because it needs to happen, and that was something that the last guest who I had on, we were talking about at one point, because he did, like, his project that just got released finally was really phenomenal because he did it all himself, and it's taken him the last 7 years to do. And it was this it was a stop motion film that he did entirely by hand, like Terry Gilliam from Monty Python style, where it's all like art that he's created, and then it's stop motion with music that he does himself.
That's pretty sick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's this 15-minute short film that he did, and it's phenomenal to watch. And
I'll have to check that out. You gotta send me a link for that.
Oh yeah,
That'd be
definitely.
cool.
Yeah, he was one of my favorite people to talk to because he's great. And I definitely have to get him on again. But anyways, about him, he said he made a point about that at near the end of our episode where he said exactly that. He said, if it takes working a job that you hate, for 6-8 hours, 10 hours a day, to be able to go home and, actually nurture your soul and kind of through your nurturing of your soul, help others. Like that's what life is really about.
No, that's just it, and like, dude, I'm working at a banquet hall again right now. I am changing out toilets for people. I'm doing handyman work. I'm touching things I never wanted to, and doing trade work I was told by my father to never do. And here I am doing it though, because at the end of the day, once I put a little more green in my pocket, I could say, man, maybe I can get another speaker that could help out with the event
Yeah.
that I want to do, or maybe I could throw some cash together and, maybe book somebody out here that I think this community needs to hear, or whatever the case might be, or me having supplies for myself to make my own things, to play more music, or draw, paint, anything, and that's kind of the thing. It's like your function of existence shouldn't always depend on the amount of money that you're getting in your pocket, but we all need to eat, and at the end of that too, we got to nurture ourselves, and we live in a capitalist system, unfortunately, where we're going to need to make a few bucks, have some bread, and go enjoy the circus, but we could also put that money aside that we're getting and make what we want to, and in that way someone else can enjoy it. We could share it with somebody else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a good tool. I mean, because it is inevitable that that's going to be the society that we have to live in. But while we're at it, and I think I've said this a few times on this show, at least to people I know, it's I always think back to Smaug from The Hobbit, where it's like he is the perfect example, characterized of the complete wrong way to use money, because he comes into a place that he didn't own, he didn't do any of the stuff to create the capital, and then he pushes everybody else out and sits on it, and that's all he does. He just sleeps on all the money.
Well, that's avarice and greed, and it's right there. That's a great metaphor for the oligarchy.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we're facing too in our modern society. It's the gap's getting wider and wider between poor and rich, and fuck them, we'll make art about it.
Yeah. Back though to your poetry that we were talking about earlier. When you traveled the country for those couple months and did that, where you were putting on poetry events all throughout the country, what kind of feeling, what kind of inspiration did you get from doing that?
Well, I'm going to start with, I didn't put on poetry events around the country. We had this idea, though, that we were going to book a nationwide poetry tour, mm-hmm. and this all came from some crackpot idea that we had way earlier. I was like, man, what if we got a bus and we just traveled the country and just read poems, man, just pick people up? It'd be like a traveling circus, right? So then through some weird cockamamie thing that ended up happening, through the odd manifestation of the language I tend to use sometimes, a bus just pops up that my buddy's little brother's selling or was looking to get rid of or whatever. And then I got a hold of it and I was like, yeah, dude, this would be tight. And then it needed some work, and then there were some issues with the titling and then all this other fun stuff. But we were posting online about it a little bit, and we were like, yeah, and I'm like, man. And then I let the thing sit for a while, way too long. And long story short, we didn't take that bus on the road, mm-hmm. but we kept talking about this idea in 2024. That was when we wanted to go and do this whole like summer long tour, right? So we go up to New Hampshire in December. It was December 17th, 2023. We go meet up with Jeremiah Walton. He's a guy who founded the New England Poetry Renaissance up there. And we're up there. We got some people from New Jersey. This is like our first like out of state thing where we just brought some of us up to go out of state from our group, mm-hmm. Because we think that's important. We want to move art around, get people around, get them performing in other places, right? And we're like, yeah, this was cool. So we brought two comedians, Liam Wolf and Nick Sanchez, myself and Damian Rucci. We went up there, did the thing, went to an event, and Jeremiah Walton's like, yo, they're doing Beat Night in Portsmouth, New Hampshire tomorrow night. We should all go, right? So we go there, and then we run into some more people, poets and musicians and stuff like that. And we met this guy, Mark Lippman, and he's just some writer and guy who had a radio show on or through NPR through LA, and talked to him. I grabbed an anthology book. He's got a press. It's called Vagabond Press. and all that fun stuff. And he just kept following what we were doing after that, right? So he saw that we got a bus, and he's like, "Whoa!" Right? And he's like, "Cool." And then he apparently, come the next August, we go up to New Hampshire again. Now with a bigger group of people, we made like a caravan.
Yeah.
And this is August 2024. We got a bunch of people up from New Jersey to go through New England for a few days. Mm-hmm. And we did this event at this bar up there that some guy we knew got a hold of, and he was like, "Yeah, I want to see something cool like this happen, right?" He comes up. He had just bought a bus. He bought a 2010 International School Bus, and he's like, "Yeah, you guys inspired me, and that was pretty cool, right?" So we go bounce around with him, and we're up in New England having a good time with some people, and then we're talking about how we're gonna do this tour with some people next summer, and we were planning it out. He was working on booking it. He ended up booking it, and so he ended up booking it. There were some things along with that, but we went around the country for 63 days.
Yeah.
And he came down to New Jersey. We left here May 3rd from Johnstown. The suspension blew out in my car, and we were like, no matter what, we're making it around America. Mm-hmm. And the whole inspiration was just proving the damn thing could be done.
Yeah.
Because there's plenty of fucking musicians that tour around, and comedians get around, they perform at different venues. But man, how many people have toured around America for poetry?
Yeah.
Other than like Allen Ginsberg, and like that was kind of the whole thing, right? So we were like, we were gonna make it happen. We were dead set on this goal for well over a year, and the inspiration of it was literally just, we want to prove it could be done. So, you're interviewing me on my kitchen table right now, and this entire kitchen table was full of chapbooks that we were assembling, in the beginning of May, right before we were leaving, mm-hmm. and stuff we were trying to make some merch and get our words out there to people, just so we were able to sustain traveling America. Yeah. And that was just us selling like $5 or $10 chapbooks and $15 T-shirts I was making at the studio over here, and just us making stuff up for the tour. We did like a split chap between me, Damien, and Mark Lippman. Mark ended up becoming the New Beat Poet Laureate for America through the New Beat Foundation. Oh, wow. This past year in September, and he's about to, be done at the end of 2025. But it was the whole thing, and he was like, "Yeah, I want to do something with having this title," and I'm like, "Well, that's cool, dude," And then we're like, we did a bunch of booking with him. Damien did most of the booking. We were on, we did a string of shows. First off, we left here directly and we went to Brooklyn, or to Queens, to a guy we knew's birthday party. That was like where we were just meeting up with him because he was coming down from Massachusetts and hitting New York City. And we're like, yeah, we're going to go there. So riding rough, no suspension in my car that just blew out. We're just like going right out there, right? And then we knew we already had 4 or 5 days in New Jersey. At the venues that Damien had established with the Renaissance, and our group of people were hosting at still. So we did like 3-4 days there. I ended up hosting back at Poetry in the Port right before we left. So I just did that for the start of the tour, and then we hit Philly. We went to Baltimore, Maryland. We got down to D.C., just kind of screwed around on our way down to Richmond. And then after that, we kind of just hit it right out to New Orleans for Gonzo Fest, which is this big thing that was happening in Louisville, Kentucky the last, 25 years. And we were there for 4 or 5 days. New Orleans was a pretty wild time, Jeremiah Walton. It was a very wild time. Beautiful city, and we all, we just kept going. Jeremiah Walton ended up hopping on with us right before we left New Jersey, and he was like, "Yeah, I want to come," and I'm like, "Yeah," we're like, "Yeah, dude, come on," and it was cool. We had this like band of people. We had an organizer, a host organizer and poet from New York City. Her name's Natalie Gilda. She runs Hot People Read Poetry. She hopped on with us, and it was this really interesting thing to just see this energy just conglomerating around a bunch of people coming together from different places and areas and saying, yeah, we want to go read poetry around the country too, right? So that was kind of the whole spirit of it. It was, yeah, we want to prove it could be done. Yeah, we want to meet people. Yeah, we want to go to places, experience, hear what people have to say. Go read our poetry, amongst the country, and like everybody had their own reasons for the things they were doing. But the mission at the end of the day was, we're going to make it across the country on poetry. And we did, man. Natalie left us in NOLA, and then we went up to Memphis, and then St. Louis. We were in Indiana reading in a cave. That was kind of neat. Ended up in Chicago. Mark broke down in Chicago. I also kind of broke down in Chicago because my car was tired of not having suspension after I tried to fix it twice. And we met so many nice people, though. Like, people were just putting us up places, and we were, like we did a potluck reading along Lake Michigan, like out by Chicago with the New Revolutionaries of America, and they were like, hell yeah, we're happy to have you guys. That was pretty cool. We got involved with they have like some poet chapter sector of a bunch of people up in the Chicago, Detroit area. They met us. They thought we were really cool. They were like, yo, come up to Racine. That was Craig Larson, and he was like, come up to Racine. We'd like to get you guys in Milwaukee. But then we had people, while we were broken down and laying over in Chicago, people fighting over kind of like booking us in different places. They wanted us in Milwaukee. We're halfway to Milwaukee, halfway to Chicago at this point, just hanging out, camping at this guy's place Memorial Day weekend. And we're like, we're hitting south. We got to get down to Chicago because we got to take the route out of here to get to Sioux Falls. We were 2 days late on going to Sioux Falls for a reading, and that was pretty cool. Went right through South Dakota, saw the Badlands, beautiful. Went on like a little helicopter ride. Yeah. And like.
Did you have any bison walk up to your car?
Oh, that was in Yellowstone. So like we got out to the Black Hills. We were in like the Mount Rushmore area.
Yeah.
Hit an open mic out there in Rapid City. Then we went to Wyoming.
Okay. And
then we all made a point where like, we got to go to Yellowstone. We don't care. We did like 3 days just driving out to Yellowstone, boondocking in the middle of nowhere. And like, that was the cool part about having the bus was we could boondock. We had a tent too. I brought some camping gear, camping stove, heater, make sure we could eat on the road cheap, all that stuff. And we spent like a day in Yellowstone, a day in the Tetons, out there. Bison were like literally forming their own lane through Yellowstone, stopping traffic on multiple occasions. And then we hit Denver, Colorado, June 1st. So we left May 3rd. It's June 1st. We're in Denver, Colorado. And we're there for the Poetry Rodeo. It's the 36th annual Poetry Rodeo. And, I ended up picking up my Mitchell acoustic guitar there because I was like, yeah, I want my guitar so I could play on the road. Our buddy Scott Ladaughty met up with us in Chicago, and he rode with us until Sioux Falls. And he had a guitar for a bit, and he was playing and jamming and reading poems and playing songs. And I was playing his guitar here and there. And I was like, I need a guitar. I couldn't bring mine on the road with me. We couldn't fit it because I knew he was coming. And then I had a couple bucks. I was like, I'm picking up a guitar, an acoustic electric. And then I went up at the rodeo, and I played, and I read some poetry for them. And we were having a good time. The boys were having fun. There was unlimited PBR for $14 a piece. We had some extra money from merch we were selling. Wild night in Denver. We boondocked it outside on some neighboring streets in the suburbs. Just hung out, did our damn thing. Read at the Boulder Library, and then we went to Taos, New Mexico, to Somos. Ended up out to Albuquerque. We were in Albuquerque for the Route 66 Poetry Festival, and that was an interesting time, to say the least. I'd never made it to the desert, and Albuquerque is a weird little city. But there's a guy, Wesley Hines, he hosted us in Chicago at the Gallery Cabaret. He was booked on the festival, and then we had a whole group of people from that festival travel out with us to California, where we were reading. We passed through Albuquerque, went to Phoenix, split up a little bit. We took 2 different routes. We had 2 different vehicles. Mark with the bus and Jeremiah, and then me and Damien in the car that kept breaking down and blowing out tires in the middle of the desert. And then we had a whole group of poets coming from the Albuquerque, the Route 66 Poetry Festival, and they were coming out to California with us to read at Beyond Baroque out in Venice, which is a legendary venue. We got booked there. They've been around since like the late 60s. And there was just so much stuff like jam packed into that. Like seeing the country at this transitive time in America and watching the riots unfold, and like everywhere we left, there was like a Forrest Gump moment. Like it was like that. It's like we were just there. That really happened there? What do you mean? That whole that plantation's on fire, that historic plantation? No way. You know, it's like, oh, there's massive tornadoes running through Indiana right now? Dang. Oh, wow. The National Guard's being deployed in Los Angeles? We're going there right now. Yeah. You know, and everybody's like, don't go. And we're like, we're going there right now. You know, and they all thought we were nuts. I'm like, no, dude, we're touring around. We got booked dates. We're in places. People are expecting us as far as we know. And like, you know, there was this whole cool thing, man. But people kept following us around the whole country, whether they were poets, you know, and like, it was neat, you know, between people following our online escapades or, you know, us meeting people that we'd never met before, or people who were interested in meeting us, you know, other poets who were booked on festivals or events just coming with us, thinking what we were doing was cool. And it was this really, like, interesting mosh podge thing of just people from all over the place and everywhere we went. And then we split up with Mark Lippman in California, and then we took a 10, 11-day trip back from June 20th all the way right back here to Johnstown. I got back with them July 2nd, and I did Flood City Fables. But, you know, in between that, it was a wild time. You know, it was us just trying to hit it back from California as fast as we could. You know, get out of the desert because I kept blowing out tires, you know. Hot. My exhaust fell off of the car.
I love the desert down there, so but it would be terrible to be stuck there.
Oh, it was like, I mean, I dealt with it. You know, we dealt with it. You know, but we kept blowing out tires going through Arizona and going into Texas through El Paso. So like we hit the Mexican border. You know, like we went right through. We were going up to. We were supposed to have a reading in one in Dallas and one in Austin, and I was like, gang, I'm not going to Dallas if there's nothing going on. The whole reading dropped. It's like, we're not going. The car's not making it. We're just heading back. And then we go to Austin. Or, sorry, I'm confusing the two. So we're not going to Austin. We're going to Dallas. I'm cutting some miles off the trip. We go to Dallas, have a great time, you know, and then we hit it up from Dallas to a friend of mine's place out in Springfield, Missouri. Yeah. You know, so like we were running along Route 66 for a good part of our adventure, but not on it. Yeah. And like we went to all these like Route 66 hotspots, and then from there, you know, we hit Springfield right back to St. Louis. Stopped in St. Louis for an open mic, and that was another thing we'd do. If we didn't have anything we weren't doing or booked on, we'd go find an open mic somewhere. Yeah. Just for the hell of it, and then we ran out, you know, from St. Louis, hit Columbus overnight or early in the morning, caught some hours of sleep. Got booked in Pittsburgh at the Poetry Lounge, did a reading there July 1st, came back here July 2nd, did Flood City Fables, and then got back to New Jersey July 4th. Did a little 4th of July thing, man, celebrate 63 days, 11,414 miles, and it was a wild fucking ride. And I'd do it again. Not right now, but I'd do it again. I would do it again. It was a lot of fun. I'm really grateful for what I got out of it. And the inspiration of it was, though, to go and see America, right now, to hear the voices, have my voice heard, have the people I was traveling with voices heard too. Like we all wanted to go do the damn thing, and like, but it was mainly though the initial idea was, and it's like we just wanted to do the damn thing. We kept saying it for a year and a half. We're like, no, we're gonna do it, and we're not gonna let nothing stop us. And we had the right crew of guys to do it. Apparently, because we made it, man, and that was kind of the trope. I kept saying it the entire trip. I said, no, we always make it. Yeah. We always make it, and there were times we didn't think we were gonna make it. I always knew we were gonna make it, though. I was driving, and but there were times that my friends and I we might have thought we weren't making it, but we always make it. You push on, you press forward, you end up making it, man, and the whole thing is though we just. Again, the inspiration was we just wanted to do the damn thing. Yeah.
Well, I think that for this first episode that we did together, I think that that's probably a great place to leave off there. But before we call it quits for good, this is a completely different question than I would normally ask. But I think it's kind of would be more interesting for what we've been talking about. But because I think what I find really interesting, what I love so much about all that is it's like. you didn't look for inspiration there. You just said, I'm inspired to do this, so I'm going to go do it. You didn't wait for somebody to tell you that, but to tell you go ahead and go do it. You just went and did it. But on the topic of inspiration, you know, then and especially now and moving forward, you know, what is it in art, in literature, in your day-to-day life that keeps you inspired, you know, that keeps you going?
I mean, the short answer is myself. Without myself, I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I couldn't keep going. But I mean, it's, you know, knowing there are other people, though, you know, outside of me, that there are other people who do care about these things, that there are other people who are out there also screaming into the void, that they're also still writing, still reading, you know, that they still care about this. They care about the knowledge or the archiving, or they care about, you know, creating visual art, and they're still painting, they're still drawing, no matter what. They're still playing music, despite all this, despite the hard times that we're in, because I find it even more important now that we are in harder times in America to sit down and say, it's like, man, I'm going to play some music about it, you know, and maybe I'll cheer some people up. And I know I appreciate it when I pass by the person who's doing that, and that's been a big thing that's inspired me to keep doing it. Is sometimes I'm the guy walking down the road and my cornflakes have been pissed in, and I need somebody to just be playing music somewhere because it makes me feel a little bit better. Or I need to go somewhere and hear what someone had to say. And sometimes I've been that person and I've been told that. And you know what? That's the light, man. That's the torch. That's the inspiration. We pass it to each other. So that at the end of the day, that is what keeps me going. And that's what keeps me inspired.
Well, thank you, Alex, for coming on this episode. And we're going to have to get you back on soon.
Yeah, man, that'd be fun, dude. we could totally do it again sometime in the foreseeable future. Hopefully I'll have more fun stories to tell about and things going on.
I'm sure there's a lot of stories that we could keep thinking out.
Oh, absolutely, man. But for now, goodbye and thank you again.